Welcome back to Prof. Plays. I'm Prof. And in this episode, we're going to be picking up with Cepheus Universal. We were playing with um, Wilbur Orla and company. It's turned into quite a crew at this point because we had to add a few more characters in order to actually be able to fly a ship. And, not have it immediately have everything go horribly, horribly wrong. Right? So that is what we have done. Which means at this point, just as a reminder of where we are, last time we were sent on a mission to go and see if we could find some pirates. That was the plan, right? So we are here in our sector. We had to go from Masuyama down, let's see, Masuyama here, which is the capital, even though it's not very centrally located. Uh, from here up to Aledhan here. Right, so we made a couple jumps to get there. Then on Aledhan, we were well on the way there, right? As we're traveling from Sosalev to Aledhan, we discovered that we had a stowaway on board. Right? A stowaway, a Mr. Billy Acevedo. We find out that Billy Acevedo is running from debt and really just wants to go and live on Aledhan. We don't know. I don't remember whether we figured out how the people reacted to that or not. But at the very least, we arrived at Aledhan. So what we have to do this time is really threefold. So first, we need to drop off Billy here on this planet, see what the reaction of people are to Billy staying here. Secondly, we need to do a world encounter since we are here, we've landed on this planet. And then finally, we need to seek out that pirate base, which we believe to be in a moon around this planet. Now, just a quick reminder of a little bit about Aledon as a planet. Uh, just double checking my notes here. Remember, it has a strong islander culture because it is in fact about 90% water. There are just a few relatively small islands on this planet. It's a little bit smaller than Earth, but larger than Mars in terms of the relative size of the planet. Right, so gravity is just a little bit on the light side, about 10% less than you would find on Earth. The people here are generally uninterested in technology beyond what is necessary for their own survival. They do have a tainted atmosphere, so people will be wearing breathing masks. They pride themselves on being brutally honest, and its moon, we know, creates weak tides because it's relatively far away, so close enough that it is in fact in orbit, but at the same time is not creating enormous tides, which is probably good, so that these islands don't just go between being underwater and then not underwater every day, right? So as things rotate and revolve and all of that. So that is where we are right now. Okay, so I think that the first thing we need to do, because we've done all the starship stuff, so now that we're here on this world, I know I made a note that I had to pick up with a world encounter. So I think maybe do we want to start with that? I think that makes some degree of sense. Let me pull out a sheet of paper here for my notes. Oh, in terms of, because I think I mentioned in previous episodes of either, I'm not sure whether I mentioned this series or in I think it was this series. Uh, so this is session, I'll date it. That's, I like to keep track of my notes. Okay. So it has been in real time a couple weeks since the last session that I recorded. I had, as I mentioned, I've had some traveling stuff. I'm going to try very hard to time my recording so that I'm not going to be missing any episodes of any of my series, but honestly, I don't think it's going to be able to happen. Because that would mean recording more sessions for my next travel date than I think is really reasonable. So there may be a gap coming here at some point. But in any case, we're going to try. We're going to try. And we're going to do this one right now. That's what we're doing. Okay, so session 717. The first thing that I want to start with is a world encounter. Because there is no starport here. So we're going to go ahead and take these two. Let's read from left to right. Pen that's easier. Okay, so it doesn't actually matter. It's 22. 22. Ruined structure holds your interest. So, I mean, obviously, I'm going to be interested in this thing because it says it right there. Uh, Ruined structure holds your interest. So the question is, which party member do we think is going to be most interested in some kind of ruins here on this planet? Now, one thing I would note in terms of education, Wilbur is not particularly educated. He only has education of 7. Garrett, strangely enough, is actually fairly well educated. He's at a 12. Even if his intelligence is just kind of normal. Oh wait, it's 11 or 12. I think it's 12. Okay. Hazel is a 10. Then we have our new crew members. Our pilot Sonia is not very educated at all. William Goodwin, who is our engineer, is pretty educated. Oh, and Evangelina Singleton. She is quite educated. I think maybe that's who we're going to focus on with this one. Right, so I think what I'm imagining is happening here. So first thing I want to do, I want to resolve the whole Billy Acevedo situation just to see are the people here willing to take him in. Right, so like, are they immediately willing to take him in? If they're not immediately willing, we might be able to do a little bit of um, convincing, persuasion to try to get them to come around to our point of view. It might not work, but we can try, right? So let's go ahead and first check to see what kind of response they're going to give. So what I think I'm going to do for this, remember they are brutally honest. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to like outsiders or dislike them, though. So I'm not going to give any kind of reroll or anything on this. I'm just going to do a simple roll, 1 to 10, using the yes no from the solo supplement here. So 6 is yes, and they are excited about having him. 1 would be no, and they're very unhappy about the possibility of him staying. Right. 2 is a plain no. That is, they're not interested in Billy Acevedo joining them. Right. So that means we're going to have a couple different storylines going on. Actually, 3 different possible storylines we need to pursue at this point. So one is the ruins. We need to figure out something out about those ruins, why they are interesting to Evangelina, our ship doctor. That's one thing we need to do. A second thing we need to do. Okay, so here's the problem. So first thing, we're going to say the locals reject Billy. Thing about Billy is, um, we don't really need him. We don't. We don't. I mean, he has some navigation skill. He has some mechanical comms, electronics kind of skills, right? So he's not totally useless, but just um he's not dead weight, but he's redundant, right? So we don't need him, right? Uh, so I don't think we want to keep him either. He doesn't want to hang out with us either because we're going to be going back to Masuyama so we can get paid for this mission, right? He's trying to get away from there, right? So at the very least, we're going to have to figure out what's going to happen in that storyline. A second storyline, right, that is going on is the pirates, right? So we have to seek the pirates. And then the third storyline are these ruins. Ruins hold specifically Evangelina's interest. Now, here's a question, very important question, because we came here totally unarmed. It's not the best decision we've ever made, but you know, this is a problem, right? When you're on an extremely high law level planet where weapons are just banned, and then they get taken from you, right? So now I just forgot to try to buy something before we came back to this planet where we might, potentially have pirates somewhere nearby. Plus, we're going to ruins. These ruins might potentially be dangerous. We don't know. We really just don't know. Right. So I think then, all this in mind, the first thing I want to do is a little shopping trip, if possible. The problem, of course, is that this planet is not very advanced. The tech level 5, which means we probably are not going to be finding things like energy weapons, for example. But let's see, what kind of weapon would our dear friend, our most useful Mr. Perfect, Garrett Damocles, want? So, Garrett Damocles, where are you? There you are, man. He can do melee combat, he can do gun combat. So either of those would be useful. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull out my equipment list. There we go. And find out what kinds of weapons would be available here. Right, so first thing, in terms of melee weapons, and melee weapons are not very high tech level, so sure, he's not going to have, you know, a telescoping sword or a force sword. Right. Gee, I wonder what that might possibly be connected with. No, but obviously he can get something like a dagger or something along these lines if he wishes. But okay, is that something that's going to be useful? Maybe so. Um, Hilariously, I can't just find a plain dagger on this list, which that's actually kind of funny because I'm not imagining him carrying like a battle axe or a club with him. That'd be kind of weird, to be perfectly honest. But something like, yeah, like I don't think a punching dagger is what I'm imagining here. But let's read this. It says, "What's a punching dagger? A stabbing dagger with an integral handguard." Oh, actually, that might be right. All right, so punching dagger it is. Punching dagger would just be 25 credits. That's not very much. Let's hope that he has that much. I mean, it's true. Okay, and then when we're looking at firearms, some kind of the lower level slug throwers would be available. I don't think any no energy weapons don't become available until tech level 9. So he could, for example, get a revolver or something like that. So I think maybe that's what he's going to do. A revolver costs 150. That's not bad. Um, I don't think I'm going to worry too much about ammo here. Let me just look real quick. One thing that I would say that I would personally change about this book is some of the organization. It feels like the lists of equipment are basically in random order, right? So like it's not obviously by cost or by tech level or even by alphabetical order, so it doesn't always make it as easy to read things as one might like. All right, so I don't need any kind of exotic ammunition or anything like that. It's just kind of standard ammunition. Although I don't know, it's probably listed in here somewhere, isn't it? Oh, there's ammunition. Oh wait, no, that ammunition is for like arrows. All right, slug throwers, ammunition. Hilariously, the only thing I'm finding in terms of ammunition for this class of weapon, is for exotic ammunition. Like I don't want like smoke rounds or anything like that. So, like, I'm not looking for incendiary riot pistol rounds or what have you. And so I guess I'm just going to make the assumption here that the ammo must come with. I mean, that seems, yeah. At the very least, I'm going to assume that it's a negligible cost. It might be somewhere else in here that I'm just not seeing possible, but I am not finding it, and not finding it makes for extremely poor episodes. I mean, we're already 13 minutes in, and all I've really done was almost buy a dagger and a revolver. All right, so, all right. So let's go, Garrett. Garrett, you've got a dagger and a revolver, total of 175. Which he did have that much money. And take some quick stats down. The revolver, it's 2d6 plus 2 damage. Oh, there's ammo cost. Ammo cost is 5. Okay, yeah, that's basically negligible. But I will put this in here anyway. 2d6 plus 5, really? No, 2d6 plus 2. Okay, I was just mixing together some numbers. All right, and then my dagger. I don't know how much that thing. You can do, it's a punching dagger specifically. It's 2d6 plus 1. Okay, interesting. They're so close. All right, so in any case, right, so the locals have rejected Billy, but they were perfectly happy to take our money. Right, so we need to figure out what we're going to do with Billy. That is one thing. So here's the question: is Billy interested in joining us? Is that something he is going to try to make the case for or not? Right? I don't know. I'm going to say we'll roll it. Is he going to try to make the case for joining us? The answer is yes. Right, so four is on the upper half. Now technically it would be a yes, but answer. I mean, I was just really just looking for a yes or no, right? So I think that he is interested in joining us. So the question is, can he persuade our captain, that is our pilot Sonia, to actually go along with this? Now, I don't know. I don't expect she'd be that keen on this because, after all, we already have like every stateroom. We have three staterooms in this ship. Every single one of them is filled at this point. Like we have double capacity in every single room we have. So, I mean, he's been sleeping in the hallway, and that does not feel like the way that things should be. So I don't think Sonia is really on board with this, right? So I'm imagining here what's going to have to happen is that Billy is going to try to convince Sonia. So the way this rolls, it is a confrontation between two characters. One character is trying to convince the other. We make an 8+ roll using the following DMs. That is, we first look at the social scores. The social scores definitely favor Sonia by a lot. Right. So if the convincer's soch is half or lower than the opponent, and that is absolutely the case, there's going to be a -2 on this. Right. So this is almost certainly not going to happen. Right, but let's go ahead and check it. Right, so is that a -2? We're looking for an 8+ total. 9 minus 2 is a 7. That is a fail. And so even though there's a pretty good roll, that it was still not good enough for what we would need to make that happen. So Sonia is not at all convinced. Right, so I want to see here, because of this, if there is some kind of reaction that goes on. So I'm looking for whether it's a bad reaction or not. So 8 and higher, there is no bad reaction. People just kind of take this in stride. Below that, and people don't take this in stride. 10, okay, so no bad reaction to this. So apparently Billy is kind of understanding about this, maybe not totally accepting, but at least understanding of the fact that no, we are not interested, or at least Sonia's not interested in having him on board. So he needs to come up with another plan, and that probably means going back to the locals and trying to convince them again. In the meantime, right? So we have the first storyline, right? Sonia also rejects Billy, right? So I'm imagining like that going on, and then we're going to cut to Evangeline. Like Evangelina has found out somehow, I assume through some locals or something like that, that there are these ruins over here. The ruins, as far as we know, I'm going to say they predate the locals here. So there was an earlier attempt at settlement that apparently did not succeed, at least not over the long term. So Evangelina is interested, right? It's probably on a nearby island. That would make logical sense, right? So Sonia is interested in checking out this nearby island and seeing what we can do. Now, I think she is going to have to. Okay, here's the thing. Like she has some investigate there, which is a plus. So I think she wants to just go and see what's there. The problem is that we don't have a good way of traveling across water that I'm aware of. So either she and Sonia are going to have to go ahead and go, or I think that actually makes sense. Because this is not anything super complicated. So I think Sonia is willing to take them. Meanwhile, we are also going to be trying to gather some information to see if we can find out any information about the possibility of there being a pirate base nearby. So I think that that's how we're going to split things up. So we have Billy had a chat with Sonia. Now he has left and is going to be talking with locals. We also have at the same time, in terms of the pirate base, I think that that's what Wilbur Orla, along with Hazel, and is William interested in that? Maybe. I could see William being interested in this. So, I mean, this is not totally. Oh, wait. This is the pirate base then. What? William's an engineer. And also not particularly great with people. So, I think William may just be staying back on the ship. Then we have going to the ruins. Garrett is going to go along with that one. We don't know, they might be dangerous, so it makes sense to have our fighter along there, as well as Sonia and what was Evangelina, the doctor. So Evangelina is a doctor, but also is interested in this history stuff potentially. So that is how we're dividing up. So we already worked out a little bit of kind of the next step for Billy. What about the next step regarding the pirate base? So Wilbur and Hazel, they need to come up with a plan for finding out information about this pirate base. Now both of them have some carousing ability. I'm actually going to let both of them use that carousing ability here. To try to kind of talk people up in the local pub, that kind of thing. I'm imagining there is such a thing here. So I'm just going to let them both use that. So that's their plan right now. So let's go ahead with scene resolution. Scene resolution, the first step is deciding the difficulty of the plan. Shaky, solid, or foolproof. Now, I don't think this is foolproof. We're just kind of passing around on a planet that doesn't really care to interact with outsiders much, right? So they have no interest in technology whatsoever. So certainly they're not very interesting to pirates, nor would they be interested in pirates, right? So foolproof, no. Solid, maybe, because I mean, there's not a whole lot here that's going to go terribly wrong. I mean, at worst, we're just not going to get much information, right? So that's kind of my thought there. Uh, Danger level, this seems pretty safe. There's little, if any, physical danger here. We aren't on, as far as we know, a mob run planet or anything like that, right? So I think that we're okay there in terms of danger level. So we need to resolve the scene then. I'm going to go ahead and have them each roll for their carousing to see if we get bonuses from there. So carousing first, five, nope, that fail. And then this would be rolling for Hazel, carousing, and +1. Uh, 7 is also a fail. So no, we got no bonuses from that. Well, that's fantastic. All right. So we're just rolling 2d6, hoping for an 8 or higher, and that would be the required roll for this. We got a 4. We failed, which really just means, uh, in terms of failure, I just the people here are not interested in anything like this. So honestly, they don't look up that often. So they can't even tell us whether there's a lot of ship activity happening out in space or anything like that. The pirates we wouldn't expect to actually come to the planet itself. For all we know, and it's totally plausible that the moon base they have is on the opposite side from the planet, right? So it's not unusual, for moons to be tidally locked, right? So there's only one face that faces the planet all the time, very much like Earth's moon does, right? So in that case, they just don't, they wouldn't see the pirate base. That's it. Is there a consequence to this plan? So we need to roll 2d6 again. Right, again, rolling against an 8. Right, the plan was not a success, so it was just a straight up roll. But there's no consequence. Okay, which is more or less what I expected. Right, so in this case, our pirate base plan, we found no information planet side, which that's not particularly surprising. I didn't expect that. Now, the last one, the ruins. So I'm wondering, uh, so Sonia is taking Evangelina and Garrett, they're hopping in the ship, and they're gonna it's capable of traveling through atmosphere. That was the streamlined design of the ship, so they can get to this nearby island without any real problem. So I'm wondering, as they approach these ruins, what is it that is interesting, right, about this? So I think that I'm going to roll here. We have a number of inspiration tables. We have options for ship, urban, wilds, personnel, action, theme, and personality. So I'm thinking theme and personality might be things would tell us something about these ruins. Right, so let's roll first for theme. I'm going to roll that as a 25. 25 here, it's destiny. So these ruins have destiny as a theme, and then personality. Again, 25. Cunning. So what kind of state are they in? They're in very bad shape. So one would indicate very bad shape here. Right? So if I want, okay. So applying this to something like if it was a situation, this would be the worst possible thing happens. We're not applying it to the situation, we're applying it to the state of the ruins. So these ruins are barely recognizable as ever having been part of a civilization. So I think it makes sense to me, given the technology level that would have to be involved here. One of two things happened, right? Either there was some kind of native species that became sentient and then died off, which could be. So in that case, these ruins are really, really old. Or it could be that this was a human civilization, like the human civilization that exists, and it was a human colony, which then just didn't have very good workmanship and just things absolutely collapsed here. Right. So either of these is a possibility. Um, I'm going to go as far as to say we don't know which of these things is true. Right. So there we go. So our plan here, we're going to investigate these ruins. So in order to do this, so let's lay out the plan. Right. So Sonia, as our pilot, is going to pilot us there. Garrett then is going to be the one that is providing some kind of protection as necessary. So I think that this one I'm going to actually like play out combat if necessary. Right. So rather than having him just roll into scene resolution, I'm going to have him like standing by in effect. Okay, and then finally, we are going to have our dear friend Evangelina. That's her name, right? Yes, Evangelina. Yes. She is going to be the one doing the investigation. So investigate for her, pilot for Sonia. Let's see how they do. Sonia definitely succeeds, especially once you add in the +3. Easily succeeds. And then a +1 on investigation for Evangelina. That's a fail. Right, so we get a +1 on the plan. Again, I think this is I'm just gonna kind of standard to a solid plan, so it's 8 plus. Okay. We've got 8 plus 1, that gives us 9. That is a success. Right. This plan, is it dangerous or not? That I'm not. This could be dangerous because we're kind of out away from civilization. There could be all kinds of possible encounters here. Right. So let's go ahead and roll for consequence. Now this is at a +2. So remember, 8 or higher total is what we're looking for to avoid consequences. We've got a 4 plus 2, that's a 6. We did not avoid consequences. So I'm going to go ahead and say this actually was dangerous. Uh, because the idea that there's a chance of physical injury, even death, if things go wrong, and that seems plausible. I mean, we are flying our ship over water. Now we know that succeeded fine. We're exploring abandoned ruins that are who knows how old on a planet where we don't know anything about what kinds of animals, plant life, or anything else that happens to be here. There's definitely a real risk here. So let's go ahead and roll. We failed the consequence roll. So now it's a 2d6. Let's find out what that consequence is. Well, okay. Well, isn't that interesting? Right, so the plan, remember, the plan succeeded, right? But with consequences. Yes, that's correct. Succeeded with consequences. Roll the 2d6. That has a +20. So there's a sudden twist in the story, is what this comes down to. Right, so what do we find? We find the ruins. So what kind of twist is it? So now something that feels possible to me, right, is that these ruins are not completely abandoned, right? There is still someone here. That seems like a possibility. Um, we could start tying some the storylines together by having whoever is here, right, be pirates. Maybe. That seems unlikely though. So let's go ahead. I'm going to roll that to see if that's what it is. All right, so I'm going to roll. This is unlikely in my mind. So I'm going to roll both dice, take the lower of the two. Wow. Definitely pirates. There are definitely pirates here on this island inhabiting these ruins. All right, so we find the ruins. Turns out they're inhabited by pirates. That is a sudden twist in the story. We thought they were on the moon. Turns out they're like right here. Okay. Well, now this is potentially an issue because we have a number of questions then then get brought up. One, did they see us coming? It feels implausible they would be not paying any attention to us. We don't have a particularly stealthy ship or anything like that. Now they let us land then, because the probability that they wouldn't be able to just shoot us down, that doesn't feel probable to me. Right? So I think that they would have that capacity at the very least. Right? So what are we looking at here in terms of the situation? We've landed on this place. I mean, it is at least it's plausible. Uh, It's not plausible. I'm just saying it's plausible they didn't notice us. They definitely noticed us. They definitely did. Um, here's the question though: did we notice them on the way in, or did we get ambushed by them? That's the question. Right. So, did we notice them on the way in? What is the most likely way we could tell that? Well, this would be some kind of, in effect, a perception roll. It turns out we have rules for perception rolls from Cepheus Universal. So we don't have to just make something up here, Professor. We can use the actual rules from the actual game we are playing. Okay, right. So what does a perception roll look like? It's been a while since I've done one of these. I want to say it's an intelligence roll, isn't it? Perception roll, so yeah, it's an intelligence roll with an 8 plus, being what we're looking at. Okay, so Sonia, being the one who was flying, sensibly she would be the one with the best eyes on what's happening here. Did she notice, as we're approaching, that this place is occupied by pirates? She absolutely did. She absolutely did notice this. Right, so even though she has no modifier on this, 12 definitely beats the 8 required. Okay, so well, I'm probably rolling a lot of 12s. So Sonia is like very sure that there are pirates here. So we find that it's inhabited by pirates. Sonia notices. So here's the question. Right? Do we decide to go ahead and land anyway? Another thing that I want to do, I want to make a relationship roll because I don't think I've done very many relationship rolls yet. I don't think. Right. So specifically for my new folks, as we know the relationship between Garrett and these two. They just didn't know each other. But these two, right, we don't know the relationship between Sonia and Evangelina. I don't think. I don't think we've established that. I'll just double check my notes just to make sure that I'm not making that up. William is secretly in love with Evangelina. That was all we know. That's it. Okay. So, right, Sonia notices the pirates. So there's going to be some interaction, I think, between Evangelina and Sonia at this point. Let's find out what their relationship is like. 36. 36 is they share a secret past incident. Hmm. Just have to make a note of that. All right. So the question is, given what we just discovered, does it make sense for them to bail? After all, we were sent to find these pirates. We have found them. We can go back, report this, get paid, and be done. Alternatively, the pirates almost certainly have noticed us. Is there a way, right, for us to sneak in? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Um, Looking at my people, I do have Sonia does have gun combat, so it is at least plausible that she would have some kind of weapon on her as well. I'm just going to give her a revolver. Let's just keep it simple, Professor. 36 plus 2. All right. So, hmm, what do we know about these people's personalities? So Sonia is optimistic and determined. She might be willing to say, I bet we can do something about this. Evangelina talks tough but is scared inside. So I think that makes sense that she is probably going to be willing to go along with Sonia because Sonia is so determined, but she is frightened of this possibility. Garrett Damocles, we know that he's seeking his fortune. We don't know a lot about his personality per se, except that he came from a hellhole planet, so he's probably going to be fairly tough, at least externally. So I could see this set of people saying, can we deal with them? Maybe. So here's the question. Looking at the situation, one thing that is going to be very, very important is how many are there? So that's a good question. So how many people are there? Rolling the d6. So I'm going to roll this as situation. So worst thing possible would be it's just swarming with pirates. Best result possible is a very small number of pirates. Best result possible. So a very small number of pirates. So at the very least, we know the people here on the planet, there aren't that many. So when we look, we think it's at least plausible that we could take them out or like capture them or something, right? So I think that that makes some degree of sense. So let's go ahead and aim for that. All right. So we're going to enter into a combat scene. All right. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually going to use combat scene resolution, which I think is interesting, right? So you can again, right, use it's a whole plan thing. We need to modify based on do we outnumber them or are we outnumbered by them? And then are they relatively green or elite? Okay. So, all right. Yeah, these modifiers are definitely not correct. In any case, all right. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to use this combat scene resolution as a difficulty of 8 plus to succeed in our combat. And then also there may be potentially a consequence here. So we're going to enter combat. I'm going to say we outnumber them. So it looks like it's, as far as we can tell, it's just a pair of pirates. They do see us coming though. Right. So our plan right now, we're going to enter in, we're going to try to take them. Uh, we have a medic and two fighters. They have two pirates. I'm going to say the plan here is, let's just say solid, though I don't feel particularly confident in that. Enter combat, so a solid plan. I'm only going to get, so I'm going to give us a +1 for that. We do outnumber the enemy, so we get another +1 for that. And then I'm going to say the enemy here, how experienced are they? Eh, Are they elite or green, or are they just kind of average? I'm going to say kind of average. So let's just roll this then at a +2. 7 plus 2 is a 9. That is success. Right, so we succeed. All right, consequences. 7. So there will be a consequence. The roll was not failed, so we're not at a -2. So it's just plain roll here. 8. 8 indicates no consequence. Okay. Okay, so maybe I should have rolled for consequences regardless. Okay. In any case, 8 indicates no consequence. So we are okay. All right. That's good. Right. So succeed, no consequence. So we at least have a couple pirates here who we have captured. So I want to come up with a couple names for these people. Let's look at my random name generator. Random name generator, and let's see, we've got any two names. Pauline Sexton and Russ Alvarado. All right. So we have managed now. We just captured a couple more people. We're going to lock them in one of the rooms on our ship and bring them back to the little settlement where our people are located. Now, here's the problem. This is not necessarily very good long-term planning. After all, as previously established, we don't have room, right, for one stowaway to like comfortably join our crew, let alone a stowaway plus now we have two additional people captives that we're going to be taking with us. I don't think this doesn't feel like a very well thought out plan in terms of um the overarching thought behind it. Okay. In the moment, I could see why we did it. After all, we had an opportunity. We seized that opportunity. It all worked out. Right? We managed to get Pauline Sexton and Russ Alvarado to. Let me just make a note here. They're pirates. I wonder what their relationship is like. Let's go ahead and roll their relationship too, just to see. Okay, it's 64. 64. They know a dark secret. Okay. I just thought it might be kind of interesting if they were also like a couple or something like that. All right, so the two of them, um, have to note down they know a dark secret that might potentially come in later. Right. So we just captured a couple pirates. Now I think the odds these are the only pirates in this um, system pretty slim. After all, I mean, if it's a significant merchant vessel, the odds that you're going to be victimized by pirates where they're literally just two people, it seems small. It seems pretty slim, right? So I don't think that these are the only ones. Maybe the only ones here right now, but not the only ones involved with this, piratey group or whatever it is. Right. So we've captured these two people. I think that we could like put them to the question, interrogate them, and see what we can learn. That seems like a possibility. Now, none of my people are particularly skilled at interrogation, as far as I can tell. Uh, so that being the case, I mean, like investigation, maybe. Wilbur Orla is that's just not his skill as far as that goes. Garrett could be potentially intimidating. That would make some degree of sense. Or yeah, I guess we could have like Hazel and Garrett try to talk them up or something like that. Do the good cop part of good cop, bad cop, and see if that's enough to get them to say much. I don't think it's going to work, to be perfectly honest. Right. So here's what I'm thinking. One, I'm thinking that this episode is getting a little bit on the long side. So it might be worthwhile to make what happens be the next episode. So let me go ahead and sketch out kind of where we are right now, at least what has happened in the past 45 minutes or so. Right, so first, our stowaway, Billy Acevedo, has been rejected by the locals here at Aledhan. They're not interested in taking him in. Second thing that has happened is that Evangelina got interested in these ruins that she thought was nearby. The ruins are basically dust at this point, but nonetheless, what little is left of them they found inhabited by a couple pirates. Good news, most of the pirates were not there, and we captured the two remaining ones. This could potentially be a problem in the future, but nonetheless, right now, it is an opportunity. So that is where we are right now. So I'm going to say for next time, we still have these two remaining storylines. We need to find Billy a home. And two, we need to deal with the pirates. So we captured two. Captured two pirates. Where are the others? Sensibly, I'm going to say that these two pirates on that island, they were there with a shuttle. Okay, this all makes some degree of sense. So I captured two pirates. I think what they were actually doing, right? I'm just trying to get all of this to fit together. They had taken a shuttle to fish on planet. After all, the moon probably doesn't have enough gravity to keep any water there, I suspect. That's what I'm going to say. Right, so they really don't have a native food supply on the moon itself, but nearby, come go fishing, and then you have fish for a while. So I think that that's why they were here. They were really just trying to get some food supplies they could take back to the base. Right, so I think that that is an issue they're going to deal with. So just kind of questions. Will they come for Pauline and Russ? That's a possibility. All right. So I think that that is a good place for us to end it. As for now, this is Prof E signing off.